Greetings, Reclaimers. I am 343 Guilty Spark, monitor of Podcast Evolved. Protocol dictates that you must listen. Come, we have a wealth of knowledge to share with you, and you don't want to make my blue eye red. Do you, Reclaimers?
Spartans to another Halo Book Club episode, a part of Podcast Evolved, your home for Halo. I am your host Aaron, and with me today we've got Krista.
Hello.
And we've got David.
Hello everybody.
And this month's book club we are covering the short story Dirt by Tobias Buckell. Buckell or Buckell? Did we settle on that? The audiobook says Buckell, but they get a lot of pronunciations wrong.
I think I said Buckell on the show when we interviewed him and he was fine. I remember even asking him about it.
That's alright, we'll go with that then. If you're not quite remembering what this is, it's one of the short stories from Halo Evolutions, so that'll jog your memory if you're sitting trying to think of it. Before we get too far into the episode, we'll do the socials. Please go and visit our website, halopodcastevolve.com or halopodcast.com. One of these days we will own podcastevolve.com, but not yet.
Soon.
Ian puts a lot of work in there. There's a lot of good stuff. I had to look up some stuff earlier from our show and Google was able to find it immediately.
Ooh, nice.
I know, it was very good. Even took me straight to the right page of the website. But it's got a feed in there for all of our shows. So we've got Podcast Evolved, the main show. Basically our weekly show. We bounce back and forth between lore and Halo news. We were doing the Road to Infinite, but the road got an awful lot longer, so I think we're currently deciding what we're doing now. But the road went from almost finished to miles, so we'll have to figure something out there. We've also got Mission Debrief. That's a deep dive into every Halo Games campaign mission by mission. It's also running out of content at the minute, so where are we now, guys? Almost finished Halo Wars main campaign, is it? Or Halo Wars 2?
Yeah, we're going to record, the next episode we record will be the last on the main campaign for Halo Wars 2. Then we have the DLC, and then we're donezo.
The end is nigh.
Well, you've got like another, 6 missions then in DLC, which isn't too bad.
Yeah, and we have two, we're gonna recap the main series, and then we're gonna recap the DLCs separately, so you got a couple months left.
We got a little bit, and then we start our Assassin's Creed podcast to kill time.
No! Oh my gosh, they were, before the show last time, they were talking about Assassin's Creed for like 3 hours.
Yeah, it was glorious.
No!
It's really good, you gotta enjoy it.
Yeah, Krista, you gotta enjoy it.
Our other show is Builds with Blocks, and that is centered around the micro action figures and brick-based construction sets of the Halo universe, so that's all your Mega Block stuff. The guys have been churning away rightly because even though Infinite may be delayed, there's still a lot of merch that's already out there. So they've been working their way rightly through that. We also have a Patreon page, that's patreon.com/Halo Podcast Evolved. We offer a variety of exclusive rewards to our patrons, like early access to episodes and swag.
Swag.
Ooh.
Yes, we have swag. I believe we have new merch at the minute.
Ian did some new t-shirts.
Yeah, he whipped up some new t-shirt designs.
He's got a really good ODST one, which is like on point.
Yeah, I was admiring some of our stuff and going like, I do need new hoodies, so I might have to pick some of that stuff up.
The cold weather is coming.
It's coming.
This week was the first week where Alexa fired my heaters on because the house started to get chilly.
Oh my god.
I know. Oh, while we're here, we'll take a little minute to thank all of our patrons for your continued support. The numbers keep going up, and it's been just mind-blowing that you continue to give us money and more money.
Thank you!
And finally, if you would like to support the show in another way, you can do that through Audible. If you haven't used Audible before, you can use the link audibletrial.com/podcast evolved, and you will get a free Audible trial, and we get a little something out of that too. And you can listen to fantastic audiobooks like Halo Evolutions, and you will then hear all of the wonderful narrators, including, as we mentioned earlier before the show when we were talking, Steve Downes, Jen Taylor, Frank O'Connor does a story as well. He does Midnight in the Heart of Midlothian, I think. He narrates that himself. There's a good mix of stuff in there, and they actually pronounce trebuchet right in this story, so bonus points on that.
Oh, nice.
They didn't call it trebuchet.
Why not? Trebuchet sounds so nice.
But it's wrong, Krista.
But it's wrong.
I probably pronounced it trebuchet the first time I read it all those years ago because I didn't know any better. Like we said, you can do all of those things, and now we will dive into our book, because it's not the longest story in the world, but it is one of the longer evolution stories. I think this would be top 3. What, The Life and Death of Preston Cole's the longest?
Honestly, I can't remember anymore.
Is it Life and Death of Preston Cole, or is it the Mona Lisa?
Mona Lisa's a pretty long.
Like a third of one of the books.
Yeah, I think Life and Death is the longest, and Mona Lisa's like second, because The Life and Death of Preston Cole is almost like a third of a novel. It's just very long. It's very good, but I think it's the biggest one. And this, I don't think this is as long as Mona Lisa.
No, definitely not.
It's a good hour, 30 minutes, so like it's pretty good. You can just get stuck into it.
It's about 60 pages.
There we go, there's a good page count for us, because I have no idea what pages these are anymore.
You don't even know what pages are.
That's true, I've just completely lost. The author is Tobias Buckell. Publisher originally was Tor Books, then in 2019 it was Simon & Schuster. It's available in all the usual formats that you can think of. The original version, by the way, is a single book. There was a later republish that is 2 volumes, and then we've now figured out that it came out again as 1 volume.
This is very confusing.
Yes, depending on which one you have, you could have got the 2009 version. I think I have the 2000, and I think Volume 1's 2010. Is Volume 2 the same year?
I'll get them for you there now, because Volume 1 is November 2nd, 2010, and Volume 2 was November 30th, 2010. So the same year within the space of a month.
Within the space of a month. And what they did was they added a couple more short stories to each of the volumes,
Super confusing.
which do not appear in the audiobook. So if you want to read those, you've got to go and get Volume 1 and 2.
And I don't think they appear in the amalgamated, even the new one. Like they put another Evolutions together last year, 2019, and I don't know if that includes the 2 new stories.
I'd imagine it would. I'd hope it would have to.
Yeah, do you know what? I might just... Let's take a look-see. I have the 2 individual volumes. I know I have that much.
I'm the same. Yeah, I've got Volume 1 and 2 because I think one is Red Spartan and one is Blue Spartan
Yes.
on the 2 covers. Those were the versions I picked up as well. I think one of my friends may have lent me the original single volume because I'm sure at some point I read that, but I don't own it.
I might buy the newer single volume just to have it.
Would be something cool to sort of hang on to.
Looks nice on a shelf.
There's no such thing as too many Halo books.
It's true.
There's just not enough Halo shelf space.
Rapidly dwindling shelf space is an issue.
Yeah, I had to buy an extra bookcase and it's still not enough.
There's no details on the stories that are actually in the book. Let me try the paperback version. Does it give me any more information?
While you investigate that, I shall read the summary and fill some time here. Dirt follows a harvest militiaman named Gage.
Yevgeny?
Yevgeny, I think he pronounces it. I can't remember from the audiobook. From his time before the Human Covenant War, as he joins first the CMA and then the UNSC with his 2 friends Eric and Felicia. After joining the ODSTs, the Covenant destroy Harvest, leaving him no home to go back to. After nearly 30 years of war, he is reunited with a few of his old friends from the CMA days, but is presented with a moral crisis that eventually leads to his heroic death. It was written by Tobias Buckell, author of Halo the Cold Protocol
And Halo Envoy.
Envoy is real good.
It also introduces the character of the Rookie, the main character from Halo 3 ODST.
Which is kind of a fun little reveal at the end of the story.
Is it revealed?
They call him Rookie. They refer to him as Rookie.
He calls him a rookie in the middle of his story, though. Like when he's talking to him. I just didn't think it was. It was probably confirmed after the fact that was.
Well, at the end of the book, he's headed to New Mombasa.
Oh, you're right, actually.
So I mean, he's called the Rookie. He's going back to Earth. Like if you're reading this short story and you at least played ODST, you can kind of make the connection. This covers a big timeline too. Actually, I was surprised.
There's a lot of date hopping.
2524 to 2552.
Yeah, I can't find out what stories are in this book right now, so we're just going to ignore it. Just keep going with this show.
That's alright, we will carry on. The last thing on this is the timeline. It goes from 2524 until 2552. When we dive into this, it's not the longest book in the world. I think Chris is going to take us through it. There's only really a couple of big overarching sections to cover.
Yeah. Well, and kind of going off of the timeline thing, it's really interesting to kind of read this because it skips around a lot, and you get to see this character react to, first contact with the Covenant and hearing that news, and then when the Cold Protocol starts, and when the INI leader dies from the Spartans. It's
a real cool perspective of like somebody so low down hearing about these major events and getting their opinions on it and those around them. I thought it was pretty cool. It's a little snapshot of like the common man, shall we say, at these huge Halo events.
And it's nice because exactly during these time skips they don't give you a date or anything like that, but you can kind of tell the date by what news he's reacting to in the moment, which is really nice. He's like, oh my gosh, Robert Watts is dead, and I'm like, I know when that is.
Well, did they say dead or captured? I think
they said captured.
I was gonna say, did they say he was dead publicly and we know different?
No, they did say captured.
I like the little bit with, well, we should go from the start. I was gonna say something around the middle of the story, but should we start with, do we think that they just like started with Harvest because that was a world they had gone into great detail on?
Maybe.
I don't know, but I felt really weird thinking like the last book club we did was Contact Harvest, and then we went to Dirt, and I was like, oh yeah, all these places are really familiar, like when he's talking about the river and the location and stuff, and then obviously Harvest gets wiped out and you get a main character from there and their reactions. Thought it was kind of cool.
It was nice. So the story follows Gage, who grew up on Harvest, didn't care much for Harvest at all and being a farmer and stuff like that, like his parents or his dad. This story's called Dirt, and you can kind of clearly tell why it's called Dirt from the moment you start reading this, because that's kind of his thing. He talks about, I don't want to be here like mucking around in the dirt. I want to be a big military guy. I want to go off and I want to come back to Harvest in a uniform and have girls swooning over me. Kind of like the normal, like, I'm 18 and I can do what I want kind of attitude.
I like the bit where he says he leaves on the back of a flatbed trailer giving his dad the finger.
Yeah.
On his way out of the farm. Although that comes back to be quite sad later. By the way, should we mention that this starts off with the Rookie finding this guy pasted onto the side of a cliff?
Oh, yeah.
It's only it's the introduction to it. It's basically the Rookie, we don't know he's the Rookie yet, finds this crash pelican and this soldier with 2 broken legs who's pulled himself out of his charred body armor. And I think, is he smoking a cigar, or was that too on the nose?
No, I think he's just sitting there, eh?
And he's like, I need to tell you a story, and then it goes to the flashback, and we get this. He's not happy, and he wants to leave, and he joins the CMA.
What I will say is, before we start here, this is a really long fucking story being told to, this Rookie in the middle of this. When we get to the end, and it's like, holy shit, time is of the essence, and this guy's like, I'm gonna tell you a long ass fucking story.
Tell you my life story. We're gonna start from the beginning when I was born.
If we go by the audiobook, he was on the side of that mountain for about 1 hour and 15 minutes telling that story.
Jesus Christ.
When we get to near and we're jumping ahead, like, he doesn't fly for that long, I don't think. I don't know, maybe he's flying super fast, but like, didn't feel like the Pelican had gotten that far away from where the enemies, let's say, are. So like, would it take them an hour to get there?
He says that they're on the side of a mountain and the grunts are on the opposite side, the Covenant forces, and they can't climb the mountain because the pressure will mess with their methane tanks, so they have to walk around it, so maybe that's why.
That makes sense, and that's cool. But like, there are other people coming towards him from a much closer distance.
I wonder that too.
They might be just trying to find him or something, maybe? Who knows? There's definitely a little... It's a bit weird. Gage decides to go off to the CMA, which is kind of a precursor to the UNSC.
What do they call them? The Colonial Military?
Authority, yeah.
Yeah, CMA.
Oh, Colonial Military Administration.
This was before the UNSC had kind of controlled all military stuff.
They were the police force of the outer colonies, but corruption is rife in them, collusion with
The insurrection.
the separatists, the insurrectionists, yeah. It's all a bit sort of messy.
And the CMA doesn't really like the UNSC, and there's a lot of internal politics kind of going on between the CMA and the UNSC, especially later in the story.
Yeah, I like at the start that they paint why the CMA wouldn't like them. They basically say the UNSC has stripped them of all their ships, so they're having to fly their soldiers basically on economy.
On commercial flights and stuff.
And they've taken most of the hardware. Like, they talked about how most of the Pelican pilots are gone and how Allison is a rare leftover, that she hasn't been pinched yet.
Because she's a pilot, like...
Yeah, and I think at one stage later, during one of the CMA engagements where they get to an insurrectionist base and everyone's cleared out, and they talk about how this brand new shiny Pelican lands with an ONI agent, next to their battered fucking... Their Pelicans battered, their uniforms are threadbare, they're like using the hand-me-downs that the UNSC don't want.
Yeah, which breeds a lot of resentment.
And to be fair, the CMA doesn't seem like the most professional organisation, because they talk about how they're basically left to do the babysitting duty of minding bases and stuff, and they're going to nightclubs in the evening time and drinking and fucking about.
Which turns out to be a problem.
Yeah.
They're mostly having a good time, and that's where we meet Allison. Well, we meet Felicia and Eric first, don't we? They're in training with Gage.
And he talks about the training, and it's kind of the normal military training that you would go through. And so he meets Felicia and Eric, and they kind of buddy up. They go through a couple years, they go through a couple different ops and stuff like that, and then they meet Allison, and they all decide to go drinking one night, and Allison has it in with her, her supervising officer, and he lets her do whatever she wants, because he's hoping to get in her pants.
He wants in with her, but he doesn't know that she's a lesbian, so they're talking in the nightclub at one stage, and Gage is like, what happens if he ever figures this out? And she's like, I won't tell him if you won't.
I love how they go to steal a warhog, and they're all gone, so they're like, I'll just steal a hornet, and we'll just take a hornet into town, and like, that's just ridiculous. But I love the idea of it.
Even better that Allison's just like, yeah, they're all standardized controls. You can fly one, you can fly them all. And Gage is like, hang on a minute, you've never flown one of these? He's like, it's basically the same thing.
And they all go out drinking together.
In the flip music nightclub, because that is the only genre of music in the future.
Of course.
Also, is flip music not kind of like weird rocky metal?
I have no idea what it is. It's future music.
It's the stuff Johnson plays in Combat Evolved, is it not? Is that flip music? You know, at the bit at the start when the other Marine tells him he'd quite like it if the Covenant glassed that bit of his history?
I have no idea. It's like like he was listening to a rock song, right?
Well, Aaron, it doesn't matter that much, because this nightclub gets fucked.
That is very true.
And Allison dies. Eric is in a coma. Felicia and Gage are the only ones who kind of survive the encounter and just need to be in the hospital. And when he was stuck in the rubble, Gage gets rescued by an ODST, which
Is significant.
Yeah, he makes up his mind to join the ODSTs because the CMA is being disbanded and kind of absorbed into the UNSC. Gage and Felicia could just go home and, resume their normal lives outside of military service, but this is kind of the event that changes Gage's mind and wants to keep fighting. And he convinces Felicia to go too.
Yeah, she was gonna go back home. She misses home. She told him a story about how... Did she say she shagged the governor's daughter?
Yeah.
Pissed him off, and she had to, leave so she didn't go to jail. But she later reveals that she was being a disruptive teenager, and her dad was basically, join the military and learn some control, and...
Yeah.
But she wants to go back home, and then Gage's like, nope, I'm gonna join the ODSTs because... These people blew us up with our own explosives thanks to the sympathizers, and I don't want that shit to happen again.
Yeah.
And she's like, right, well, fuck it. If you're going, then I'm going with you.
And she kind of calls him, you're like a big brother to me. I want to go with you.
Yeah, and she's a little resentful about it.
She is. She feels like you're making this decision, so then I have to make this decision. But she didn't really, but she is a bit resentful against him.
But luckily, it turns out to be the right decision.
Yes.
Yeah, I guess so.
Though you get to see them go through training, which is kind of interesting because some of the training regiments they go through is very similar to the Spartan ones.
I was going to say that I did love the difference of okay, we have CMA training and then we had the ODST training and the massive differences between them. Thought it was cool.
Because the CMA training is just kind of the basic, do obstacle courses and run a lot kind of stuff, and the ODST is like, we're going to put you on a mountain and we're going to fire rounds that paralyze you, and you have to get to the top of the mountain in a couple days. And if you do, you can go home. You can go and get some sleep on a bed and get food.
I like that little scene because each time they talk about it, that he says, they get a bit further up the mountain as their training progresses. They go from single tactics to squad tactics to team tactics, and they talk about how in this last run they're almost at the top of the mountain when they get ambushed by the trainers.
Yes.
It's a cool training sequence. I like that.
Yeah, and then they're like, we would need sniper rifles to take the rest out, and then one of them has the bright idea and goes, the trainers have sniper rifles. So they all lie and play dead with the rest of them and then take out the trainers and get to the top of the mountain. And just at the moment they should celebrate, the guy in charge appears in a pelican and tells them, right, we're going to accelerate your training because we're going to need you, and then he breaks the news to them.
Yeah, that harvest is lost, and there's an alien species that wants to kill us, and Felicia loses it.
Yeah, Gage kind of goes frozen and paralyzed thinking about everything. He's trying to think about the last time he was nice to his dad and shit like that, and then Felicia just loses her shit and punches him.
Yeah.
They kind of have a falling out here because she, don't know why, sees it as kind of his fault that she never went home kind of thing, and now she never can.
Basically, she took the last reunion she could have had with her parents away kind of thing. I think that's what she's feeling. In a roundabout way, he saved her life, and she does come around to that later in the story, but right now they get separated and they kind of go their own ways, and Gage just goes off, and there's kind of a bit of a montage of him going through the next 20 years and just slowly losing his will, and he's just one day I'm just gonna be dead. It's just gonna happen. I'm gonna be dead one day, and then it's not gonna matter, but I'll just keep going until I die. It's basically his mindset.
He has that line where he's like, I don't learn the names anymore, I don't form attachments because they're all gonna be dead soon. And you're like, that's maybe not the person I want leading me into battle.
Yeah, but that's also why he has a remark saying that that's why I progressed to this level and no higher. That they know that he's as good at what he does, but not any better.
I get the feeling if this was a regular war, he would have been discharged by now. They wouldn't keep a soldier like him on. He's got serious troubles.
Well, in the middle of the war that they're losing, they'll take everybody and anybody.
They need anybody that can shoot a gun, so that's probably the only reason he's still an ODST.
Yes, definitely. After this kind of montage of him losing faith, we see him on a planet, and he's fighting the Covenant, and he runs to a castle to hide. Well, he's told to go there. And then Felicia is there.
He gets rescued by a Spartan.
Oh yeah, this is when he gets rescued by a Spartan. He's like, what the fuck was that?
Yeah, we don't know which Spartan it is, but he gets rescued by what he describes as a human tank. He's charging through the battlefield, shrugging off grunts left, right and centre, tackling elites head on, and they all make their way back to, I think they describe it as some like rich CEO's castle that he had built.
Yes, and it's like a medieval castle too. And the reason why they were retreating to it, because it was made out of stone like a traditional castle, and when the Covenant used their energy weapons against it, it just melts the stone and makes it stronger.
I thought that was a cool image. It's a cool idea, concept. I like that.
Yeah, I like the idea of parapets with anti-aircraft guns dotted across the top of them.
Yeah, I love that. I love that a lot. So this is when he meets up with Felicia, and she is a colonel?
I believe so.
Yeah, the lieutenant colonel maybe, but she's gone up a few ranks.
And she immediately, says, you should come to my squad, I'll have you transferred right away, and I have a surprise for you.
She is a colonel.
She's a colonel, okay. They retreat, they go up to the ship, and there is Eric. He woke up from his coma and became a pilot, and this re-engages Gage with just kind of life and the war and all of this and gives him hope again. They kind of buddy around for about 5 years. And then we go to kind of present time. It's 2552. They land on this planet, and Felicia and Eric say, because we're part of the CMA, the UNSC have literally no reserves for us to be paid once we exit service. We're kind of stuck here, and we want a retirement plan. We need to go and get this. They're getting a bomb, right?
They have to go down to the planet. There is an Forerunner artifact from the sounds of it, or it turns out...
They just say artifact is what they say, and it turns out there's more than one or something.
It's it sounds like vague. It's several. Yeah, I can only assume it's Forerunner shit they're digging up out of the ground, because that's the typical Covenant motive. And she said that because the planet had to evacuate so quickly, she's like, the bank is here in the city, it's close to where we're going, and all the golden shit is still in the vaults in the basement. So she's like, what we're going to do is we're taking 4 Pelicans down to raid the Covenant facility to get the artifact. But we're going to also fly down a 5th Pelican with a hand-selected team, and we're going to breach the bank, load it up with gold, and fly it back to the ship, and then we're all going to retire. The one flaw to the plan is, as we know in later Halo, I wondered, how the fuck were they going to hide all this from the AIs?
That's why there's no AI in the story, Aaron.
Yeah. Well, and also, here's the thing, if they wanted, they can't just take all this gold and then put it into their bank accounts, because that creates a flag on your account. They would have to figure out a way to launder this money to spend it, because you can't just give someone a gold bar and be like, hey, this is how I'm paying for dinner. So there's a couple flaws with this plan, especially since, other than gold, the Halo universe doesn't have physical currency. It's all digital. All these digital credits that they just kind of share back and forth. They don't have like a paper money system or anything like that. So I mean, when you get down to the actual how they would do it, it kind of loses the story loses a little bit integrity.
The only way I assume they can ride out of it is go that all their old CMA contacts would probably launder the money for them.
They could probably just go to Venezia or whatever, something similar to Venezia, and then sell all the gold and get credits for it. That's probably what they'd end up doing, and then going back to Earth.
But they breach their way into the vault, and when they get to the last room, they're waiting for the lights to flicker on. They see the shadows, flickering, and then they realise that, oh, those aren't shadows, and they're like, fuck, it's a load of school kids.
Yeah.
They find out that the last of the people in the city basically geared up and went out to fight the Covenant. So they've left this old school teacher with the kids, and they decided, because they knew the Covenant were glassing, they wanted to get as deep down into the ground as they could, so they were in the vaults of this bank. And Gage is like, I didn't have the heart to tell them they were nowhere near deep enough to survive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They think the ODSTs have come here to rescue them. The ODSTs are caught off guard, and then Felicia's like, we're here to escort the gold out because we need that for the war effort.
Really clever, really fast. She worked really fast with the story for this. It's pretty cool.
we'll figure out a way to help you guys. We'll give you some food and stuff. And she's basically, we can't save them. We need to get the gold out. They're on their own. And then Gage just can't cope with that idea.
And then then everybody starts drawing guns. So there's 2 other characters that are raiding this vault. They all kind of do the like standoff thing where they all draw their guns, and Felicia gets shot pretty much in the head, and Gage gets shot in the stomach.
He gets shot in a few places, yeah. He gets like a graze and stuff like that, like.
And so Felicia dies in Gage's arms, and Gage kind of comes up with this plan to save the school children, basically.
Yeah, because while this is happening, the ODSTs have secured the artifacts and are evacuating. They now have the Covenant, because they split into several teams thinking they confuse the Covenant, and then the team with the artifacts are on the radio going, the Covenant are tracking us, they're ignoring all the other teams, they're following just us, we need evac. Gage suddenly realises he can meet up with the team, take the artifact and lead the Covenant away from the city, which will give them time to evac the children.
So what he does is he finds the team with the artifact, he lands the Pelican, he tells them about the school children and how they need to be out. They're looking at his crates like, why do you have so many crates? And he's like, here, take some gold. Eventually he reveals, hey, here's some gold, buy yourself something nice, save those school children, I'll take the artifact. And then how does he get the Shiva warhead? Was that with the artifact?
He had it. Yeah, the guy he meets has one. He's like, yeah, just throw it onto this ship. I'll take it from you.
Yeah, it was basically, it must have been their like last resort plan. If they couldn't take the artifact from the Covenant, it would be asset denial and they'd nuke themselves.
So he takes the artifact, he takes most of the gold, except for what he gives to those guys, and he just flies his Pelican towards this mountain. The Pelican, of course, is way over encumbered, and he doesn't know how to fly a Pelican very well. He ends up crashing the Pelican on the side of the mountain. He knows it's going to be a while.
He ends up getting shot down by his own force.
Oh yeah, because there's a Banshee coming after him, and then the guys that want the gold are chasing after him. They shoot the Banshee with a rocket, and then they accidentally shoot the Pelican, which downs him. And then this is kind of where we meet up to present day, where he's in the crashed Pelican. He knows the Covenant are on their way. He knows that the guys who want the gold are on their way, and then he has the rookie, and he tells the rookie his story. He says, make sure those school children are safe, fight well, destroy the Covenant. You need to haul it up the mountain and hide, because I'm about to blow sky high with all the Covenant forces.
Yeah, and he's like, don't go near the first Pelican you see, because it's probably fucking the bad guys.
He's conveniently on the other side of the mountain from the city, so he's like, you have 15 minutes to get up that ridge and get across it to the far side, otherwise you're getting nuked where I am, because I'm going to give everyone a welcome surprise when they get here. And then the last thing the ODS or the rookie sees, he sort of strips his gear off and runs up the mountain, and just before he goes through the ridge he looks down and he sees the Pelican land and 3 people get out. And he can see that they don't go over to Gage, they just start to search the wreckage. And then the grunts appear on the scene, and the rookie's like, alright, I can't watch anymore. So he hoofs it through to the other side and then starts to slide down the mountain. And then there's this massive shockwave as Gage lets the nuke off.
It's revealed that the Covenant find Reach, I think.
Yeah, that's when he gets picked up. When he's talking to Gage, it's the rookie, and like he knows Gage isn't going to get out of this. He slowly figures out that Gage knows this too. He's on the comms with what I can only assume. He wouldn't be with Buck yet, would he?
Yet they haven't met yet.
He's fresh out of boot camp here, and I think, doesn't the rookie actually have some experience? I know it chimes it up, but he makes a comment about the fact that he's not too long out of boot camp because he's still able to make that crazy sprint up the mountain.
Yeah, I think it's a few weeks or something. Like, it's not that long. He's probably gone from boot camp to cryo, and this was like his first drop.
He's probably in single digits on.
Yeah.
Well, I think Gage went like 5 weeks before they made a combat drop when he first trained, so I was sort of guessing he's pretty fresh.
Yeah.
Green, that's the technical term, isn't it? He gets picked up by the other Pelican, and they're like, yeah, the kids are all evacuated and we're evacuating too. It's like we're heading back to Earth, and the rookie's like, what do you mean Earth? And he's like, oh, Reach has already been attacked. It's like, it's just Earth left. He's obviously on his way back then to be assigned to Buck's team and kick off the start of ODST.
Yeah, it's probably pretty much right after this, because it is 2552. We don't know when in 2552, but we know the Covenant has found Reach, and they're going to be going to Earth next. There's a lot of great tidbits in this story. A lot of good insight into like what a kind of low-ranking guy is thinking about everything that's going on.
What I think this story is, it would be, if you were going to make a Halo movie, this story's a very good Halo movie.
Oh, this would be great.
If it was fleshed out, like if it was a full book, it definitely got a lot in there. Like, if you take this character, you wouldn't even have to have the rookie in it at all. Well, you could, I suppose, near the end, but like, just to have the story being told. But like, could definitely flesh it out where like this guy's military career, things that happened to him, build and flesh out this character to get to the point where like they have a heist. I think that would be cool. It'd be cool to see a heist like that in Halo's world.
It's removed enough from the main Halo storyline that you don't need to be over-explaining stuff that's happening. Like, you don't really need to go into the Spartan program, you don't need to talk about the Halos or the Forerunners or anything like that. It's a very simple story that's just kind of the surface level knowledge that you really need to understand it.
Yeah, they do a good job of touching on everything, because you touch on, you have this story about the history. You know from the beginning that the colonies aren't happy. You get all that. You get the details of you get the key points of the Spartan program. You get the key points of the Covenant and like what's at stake and all the rest. But I think something like this would be, like, it would have been a fantastic movie, even though I'm sure they'd have never made a Halo movie that wasn't about Master Chief. But like a good heist war story like this seems perfect. Like, if you had this as a 90-minute movie, like, it would just hit the sweet spot.
They could have more like Spartan action in it or something like that, just so you get to see the Spartans, but it would be a great way to introduce people to the Halo universe.
Overall, what do we think?
It's a good read, yeah. It's nice and short.
It moves fast.
It hits all those notes, it hits a bunch of good notes. There's a lot of good character development, there's a heroic moment, there's some sad moments, and it teases a character that we see in the games.
I kind of feel similar. Like, I think Gage, for all the short time we know him, he's a well sort of like rounded out character. You kind of feel for him by the end of all this. He's just this guy that's suffered a lot and is just ready for it to be finished.
I do also like the story is called Dirt, and it's about this character, and they hammer it home numerous times throughout the story where he says, it's just dirt, it's dirt. Because that's how he referred to Harvest. He didn't really care about it. It was just dirt. He was a farmer, so like he didn't really care. But by the end, he understands the importance of it, that it's our dirt.
It's where we live,
It's where we live. It's why it's important. So I thought that was cool. That where like comes full circle. It's got a cool title. You kind of know where it's going, but I liked it a lot.
Is that kind of us? Like, there's not a huge amount more to say about this. Like we said, it's a good story. It's a good length. It's one of the longer ones in Evolutions, but not the longest by far. And it's just generally, they do this a couple of times in Evolutions where they have, I think this and the life and death of Preston Cole are the two stories that give you like a good history overview of the Halo universe.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is really good for jumping around like that.
Such a good expansive length of time, and they kind of touch on everything, like even down to you get Watts mentioned in this. Like, you go everywhere and then you can build off it later. So feel like I might like some of these stories more than some of the Fractures ones.
I mean, the Halo universe was a bit simpler, because once 343 took over, and we're very happy they did, and they really expanded the extended lore, but it made the Fractures stories just a little more complicated. Most of the Evolution stories are, this guy's in the UNSC fighting the Covenant, and this is what he thinks about it. That's a lot of them in Evolutions.
I think like it's kind of telling that this story takes place on the one colony that we just got a book really detailed on. We have this one colony that we fleshed out, so this will be their colony. And the only other person that didn't come from that colony is Eric, and he comes from the other colony that they name drop in the other story. I feel like it was just like, we have this stuff, we can build on it.
The Halo universe was a lot smaller when they were writing Evolutions.
I suppose they kind of do a lot of the same thing now, because a lot of the same stories in the modern Halo universe take place around Venezia. Like, that's the new sort of like colonial focus.
Yeah, but you could also say this is post-Covenant era, and there's not as many active planets, and blah, 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 blah. Venezia was left untouched, so it was always a hub.
Fair enough.
It's definitely nice to recognize where you're at, though. I always appreciate that.
I think overall, this is a good story. I find it very hard to think there's anyone that doesn't like this.
There's no reason not to like it.
No. I see we have a bit of trivia here, David. Do you want to take us through some trivia?
There are some bits of trivia. One of them was kind of obvious, and I immediately thought of this when I was reading it. I don't think I've read this in a very long time. Probably back when we originally did it, and I think even talked to Tobias about it. The story was heavily influenced by the films Three Kings, no doubt, and The Rock. Elements from both films' plots are present in Dirt, such as soldiers plotting to get rich by stealing gold, but having second thoughts when civilian lives are at stake. Disheartened veterans wishing to steal from the government they feel betrayed them. A standoff that takes place due to soldiers disagreeing over whether or not they should save civilians or get the money. And said standoff turning into a firefight when one gunman changes the target to the last second. That's kind of like The Rock's kind of standoff is a big element. That someone who thinks you're on is against the main protagonist turns suddenly and becomes an ally, and then immediately dies. That's all kind of like The Rock's kind of final standoff and stuff. It's pretty cool. I did immediately think of Three Things, not The Rock, but Three Kings, about like soldiers trying to rob stuff. It's pretty cool. This is a weird one, but at the bottom of page 118, ODST recruitment officer speaks with Gage and his friends by saying, "Raw meat for the ODST grinder, huh?" This is most likely a reference to the film Starship Troopers, which is awesome, where the recruitment officer pretty much says, "More meat for the grinder, huh?" when speaking to the civilians when they go to enlist. I thought that too. That immediately popped in my brain.
Love me some Starship Troopers.
Ah, it's good.
I just watched the Honest Trailers thing for it the other day. So good.
So good. The story features the first two openly gay characters in the Halo franchise, Felicia and Allison, which is quite interesting. Yugavni Gage erroneously describes Spartans' Mjolnir armor as weighing 2 tons. However, Mjolnir armor only weighs half a ton when operational. I think this is just him exaggerating as a person who wouldn't actually know at all how much it weighs. He just goes, "Oh, that weighs 2 tons." It's just a random number.
If you were on the battlefield and you saw a Spartan like flinging grunts through the air, you would probably assume he weighed a ton.
Yeah, I think that's just a number thrown out there as opposed to like him trying to guess the actual weight of the armor. Also, finally, I want to touch upon this. A fan-made film adaptation of Dirt was made called Halo Helljumper. It was released in January 2012. Halo Helljumper is a fan-made film series adapted from the story Dirt. Sorry, I'm repeating myself. The series is directed by Dan Wang of Method Pictures, and it was released in 2012. But unfortunately, due to lack of funds, the production of Halo Helljumper is currently paused, and in 2019 the domain of the website is now available and all the episodes have been removed from YouTube. There are 2 episodes out there, and you can still get them on YouTube by obviously other third parties. I can't remember, I'm sure I have watched it, but it has a Metacritic rating, which Aaron kind of noticed, so of 6.
6.9 out of 10.
Yeah, so it's probably worth a check out. It's like your first episode 13 minutes, second episode is 11 minutes, so it doesn't like that take up that much of your time. There are a bit differences between the two, but probably worth a watch, guys. If you're interested, there you go.
Alright, well, I think that will do us for this week. It's nice to have a good book club, and just something fun to sink your teeth into without having to think too hard about it.
And read an entire book.
Yes, it was really nice to listen to this audiobook today.
I read mine today too.
There's a look behind the scenes. We are always prepared for this.
100%.
Thank you for joining us, guys. You can find every episode of our shows on the website, halopodcast.com. It also features links to everything else. So we've got Discord, Facebook, Patreon, the Xbox Live Club, which seems to get a few people every week, because I always get the notification when I sign in. If you guys want to leave us a voicemail, either about this episode or anything in general, we listen to them on our monthly live shows. And you can give us a call on 205 Evolved. That's 205-386-5833. And you can leave us a voicemail on anything. I think our last few were mostly just compliments. Before that, we had the great debate of pancakes or waffles. And then back at the very beginning, we had that lady asking how her friend was getting on with the weather. Like we cover a lot of stuff.
They can be Halo-related questions, they can be praise, and they can just be random questions you might want to know about us.
Or you can leave us a drunk voicemail should you feel inclined. Alright, with that, I have been your host, Aaron, and until next time, Evolved.
Evolved!